without further ado, I would like to bring out the chairman of the board of HP, Mr. Ray Lane, and Shane Robison, the Chief Technology and Strategy Officer. So I want to start with, who is HP? Now, if I may paraphrase, you guys made a pretty bold statement back in August, deciding to try to dispose of the PC business, the mobile business, the acquisition of autonomy. And that came after acquisitions like ArcSight, Vertica, 3PAR, 3Com, all the threes I think you guys were trying to buy up there. Mr. Apotheker recently told the Wall Street Journal that HP is beginning a much-needed transformation. So my question is, into what?
So, when we announced everything in August, we need to take ownership that we did a poor job of communicating, because even you stating it right now are not getting the announcements right, okay? So let's take the PC business. We did not announce that we're spinning out or getting out of PCs. What we announced is a recognition that the PC business, the business of packaging Windows on Intel technology, is a very different business than the business that HP Enterprise with servers, storage, networking, services, and software is dealing with. They are very, very different business models. They move at different velocities. One is pretty much a commodity business, again, packaging Windows, and the other is not a commodity business. And it needs to move, and we'll talk more about this, more to the world of information management, which requires software and services. So what we announced was that we would look at the possibility and have the intention of spinning off PSG. That would accrete two benefits. One benefit would be that it could be its own business model and do what it needs to do to serve customers and serve investors without moving at the pace or the cadence that HP was moving on the enterprise information side. The other thing it would do is allow investors who are looking for cash flow back to them in form of dividends, in the form of stock buybacks, but not in the form of innovation. The investors do not. I think when you look at a technology company, everybody assumes that investors want you to continue to innovate, and of course you do or you die. But there are a lot of investors that don't want that. A lot of investors that are in HP for the cash flows, in HP for the return of those cash flows to stockholders, and actually don't like big innovative steps. So this allows us to look at the separation of those two businesses, because the PC business is tremendous cash flows. It's obviously low profitability, but it's tremendous. It's the biggest PC business in the world by far, and it is the most profitable by far, but still, in the context of HP, it delivers $2 billion of profit per year on a $41 billion business. So these are clearly becoming two different businesses, and we think these businesses should be looked at separately, and if warranted, and we just don't know yet, if warranted, spun out. So, and that's the difficulty of the announcement. If you do all the work to determine whether it's viable to spin out beforehand, we end up with a leak. You can't have hundreds of people working on the project without some kind of leak, and then we're having to explain it to the press anyway. So we thought best to go out and explain that we are going to look at this option for the benefit of that business model, the customers, and for the investors.
So let's talk about the next step here, because HP has been known for a lot of things. It's been known for engineering, it's been known for its imaging and printing, and certainly PCs and servers and its management software. How would you say that that's changing? How do you want people to know HP now?
Very simply, it's an information and technology services company. It is primarily serving commercial businesses. We'll talk in a second. I'm sure you'll want to talk about, well, are you getting out of the consumer business and all that? That's very easy to address, but we really serve businesses. So if you consider a consumer, my 30-year-old daughter who wants a smartphone for talking to her friends on Facebook, and HP should be delivering to her a device that does that, we're not in that business. The information that gets delivered to that device and gets managed behind it in real time, I loved your opening comments on speed, that business we're in. So whether it is a managed service provider, it is an enterprise, all the businesses that are concerned with information management, we want to be in and we want to lead that market. But we don't think we can compete on a best-of-breed basis providing devices to consumers.
Got it.
When you talk about a consumer, separate the consumer into a device that they use to access information and the information that they want to access. So we're in the consumer business if you focus on information delivered to the device.
Now, I asked Mr. Apotheker earlier about innovation, and I mentioned that his predecessor had cut R&D spending by as much as 47%. And his response to that was that it's not about how much you spend, but it's about empowering engineers, about taking risks, and cutting cycles. So I would ask either one of you, and that was an interview I did back in March. So between then and now, what grade would you give yourselves for having done that from then until now?
Let's let Shane address that one. I agree with Leo.
So I think as the CTO, I would always ask for more R&D budget, but that's not a fair comment. If you look at what we've done with the announcements we've made, in addition to what Ray said, it allows us to align the business models at the investment level. So we can invest in the PC business in a way that's appropriate for that business model and that segment, and we can invest in the enterprise business in a model that's consistent with that business model. I think one of the confusions people have about HP is we're compared with one other business model in a situation where we have multiple business models. So for example, if you compare us with IBM, a third of our business is the PC business. And by business model, the investment in R&D will be significantly lower in that segment. So what you have to do with HP is break it up into the different business models and then look at the investment levels and whether they're appropriate. I think we're doing very well in innovation in our research labs. We're doing very well in innovation in our systems business. We all know services business, which is a huge piece of our portfolio, have a different investment profile, as do PCs. So as we decompose this, I think you'll find we're not very far out of line.
Innovation for the PC business sits at Microsoft and Intel. Right. And that's just fine. We're a service and distribution system, just like Dell is, and other PC companies. So you don't count that when you look at $130 billion of revenue for HP, and you say, what's the R&D budget? You have to remove $41 billion of revenue because that R&D is done by Microsoft and Intel.
So let's talk a little bit more about autonomy, and I realize that there's only so much you can say because that's not a done deal yet, but talk about why you want it and how that will help HP in its transformation.
Well, as I mentioned, the vision is an information and technology services company. So we want to be of service with innovative technology on the back end, servers, storage, networking, to basically enable information management. We need a larger software portfolio to do that. The big opportunity is with unstructured information. Search, real-time analytics, streaming information to really be, to understand information that's flowing through an enterprise in real time. So as we looked at that, we said, well, this is a big opportunity. You cannot do this with relational databases. So the world has been struggling for the last 5 years to try and find faster and faster and bigger technology that will outperform Oracle in doing a kind of a semi-structured job. We've got information that's unstructured and information that's structured in the same database. So we've seen things like Greenplum and Netezza and Vertica try to do that in data warehouses. And then you look at Autonomy, not a well-known, a very large, but not a well-known company in America, but has 400 OEMs and has a presence, a big presence around the world in unstructured information. Searching it, analyzing it, and bringing meaning out of it. And so we thought if we want a position in information management, especially the 85% of the world that is unstructured, not the 15% that is structured and fits into corporate databases, then we've got to make a, we either develop that technology or we buy the technology. Autonomy was the only answer.
He's good. He might be taking your job there. He knows his stuff.
He does.
So obviously a key acquisition in your strategy down this road, if you had to say, if this were a marathon towards your goal, what mile would you be at?
I think we're still early in the race. I mean, if you look at, as Ray said, the 85% of the information that's unstructured, the growth rate in that segment is explosive, whereas the other growth rate is linear. And our ability to lead in that, which autonomy is key, is just at the beginning. Now, we've got a very good position going forward, but when you can do things like extract meaning out of emails, determine differences in images, determine tone and mood in voice, the capabilities are unlimited.
Yeah, all unstructured data. In my day job at Kleiner Perkins, where we fund innovators and startups, we also help sponsor what we call a CIO strategy exchange. Very, very large companies, $3-4 billion IT budgets. And they come in and just basically hear from us on what are the big trends going on in Silicon Valley. They also get a chance to talk to what they call big hat speakers like Leo and Sam Palmisano and what have you, and get an idea of what they're doing in terms of innovation. The small guys do disruptive innovation. The big guys do continuous innovation. And so they want to hear both. As we talk to them and have a dialogue on this subject of information management, I mean, they're dealing with, not with technology issues, they're dealing with management issues. How do I take a professional and consumer, because they're in one body. I mean, I love to use my device, my smartphone, for doing fun things as well as professional things, and I want to get that in the same package. How do we deal with that? Do we provide a stipend to employees to buy whatever they want and then empower them to do it? Do we buy managed services and get out of the technology business? How do we keep up with the talent we have to acquire and bring into the company? And this dialogue with CIOs is moving more and more in that direction, where the CIO's position and job is to manage the environment, bring the best technology with the best professionals into it, but not to make technology decisions, not to decide which PCs I buy. That's the procurement guy is making that decision right now. That's a procurement officer. So,
well, let's talk about your customers for a second, and they're all out here as well, but I want you to fill in the blank. The single biggest issue CIOs face today is?
Getting the right information fast enough.
Getting the right information fast enough.
I think I'd have to offer a couple of things. I think it's talent. I think there's a real talent war, and to respond to what you talked about, speed, movement, really helping the business. It's about getting the right talent. And I know everybody says, I have the best people. It's just not true. Everybody can't have the best people by definition. And so you have to think beyond. You have to go out into the world and say, I want the best people, and the best people to do this task might be sitting at HP or at Google or at IBM or Oracle. The best at this task would be sit and assemble that. I think that's the biggest challenge, is getting the best talent, the best people to win whatever competition you're in.
I want to read to you some statements from some CIOs that I've talked to in preparation for this. So some direct quotes, and I won't attribute them. We are an HP shop. HP is the backbone of our IT operations. The first habit of highly effective CIOs, or even moderately effective CIOs, is to keep the shop running all the time. It worries me with our cornerstone provider that our cornerstone provider is getting a bit wishy-washy about who they are. Are they going to shift their server and storage R&D to something else? Or are we about to hear that they're getting out of that business as well? Another quote, "For me, the breakdown is around customer engagement through their sales team. Right now, the sales team doesn't seem to be clear on where HP is heading." Another one, "What is the current HP business strategy?" So I think you've addressed where HP is going, but how would you respond, and how does HP respond to customers who are clearly coming with these concerns and confusion?
So I haven't talked to a customer yet that wasn't confused by the announcements. And after 30 minutes didn't say, "I get it now. I totally understand it. You know, you're right. We buy PCs through procurement. We may care about an HP brand on it or a Dell brand on it or a Lenovo brand on it, but you know, it's not a lot." Okay, the price is what matters. So is that really a strategic issue for them versus managing information? So how does HP help them manage information when we don't have the software portfolio to do it? So buying autonomy and providing that and integrating it with Vertica, okay, and having software components like ArcSight, Fortify, more software content, more services content will help us be more of a partner with customers. They get that. I think the one that is the most confusing is probably devices, the touchpad, and WebOS. That's probably the one that's most confusing. And so when I sit down to customers and explain that, it is separate the device, the smart device, that I believe there are better competitors than us to produce the hardware for those devices, and I think the Koreans are going to be really, really good at this, okay? And so Apple's more worried about the Koreans than they are about us. Separate that from WebOS, which is the best commercial application development web platform in the world. You cannot develop serious portable applications on Android. Android is a great operating system for a smart device. But if you want to develop a serious commercial application, I talk to all our portfolio managers, our company managers in our portfolio, and you talk to these entrepreneurs who are building companies, they want to build on WebOS because they can port it to anything. You can't do that with Android or iOS. So we see WebOS as a viable, that's the reason we keep that at HP. We see that as a viable commercial web development platform. You mentioned Salesforces. I don't know of a single large IT company where anybody has it right on the Salesforce. It's been a long time since I've heard any customer say, "I love my sales teams." Now, there are sales teams that do a great job of providing relationship capital, deliver information, education about products, and we've got to continue to do a better job of that. But I remember 5 years ago in my Kleiner Perkins job talking to Sam Palmisano, he had a mess on his hands in terms of the sales force. You know, if you have a account, let's call it account executive, and that person is a good person that can deliver information to you and can orchestrate all the other product guys that have to come and talk to you, you're very fortunate.
So let me just touch on the investment question, because I want to make sure it's clear. The strategy that we rolled out in March and the execution since then has been build on the foundation that we have in infrastructure. Servers, storage, networking, the management software that helps you optimize the utilization of all that. We will continue to invest in that. That's sort of the lifeblood of what we're trying to do. And then on top of that, we'll build out the software structures to deliver it either through the cloud or on-premise, depending on your requirements, complemented with things like analytics and ultimately heading into vertical application software. So there shouldn't be any confusion about whether we're investing in the infrastructure part of our business or not. That's the foundation for everything that we're about to do.
Just poking at the vision thing from a different angle, competitively, and I'm cognizant of time. We've got probably about 8 minutes, and we want to give the audience some time to ask some questions as well.
Why don't we do that? Okay.
I'll just get to a couple quick things, and then we're going to do that for sure. I want you to fill in the blank again. we are light years ahead of IBM when it comes to.
So the technology infrastructure, servers, largest server company, industry standard servers and high-end servers, largest storage. Networking is not really relevant with IBM, but we are certainly taking share from Cisco. IBM does not have a services delivery capability. They have professional services, but a services delivery capability like we have with the acquisition of EDS. They have a larger software portfolio. So I'd say that's
And when
what
we
it is.
close autonomy, we'll be the leaders in unstructured search.
And autonomy certainly gives us a big leap. They're unique.
And I think I might know the answer to this too, but I'll say another fill in the blank. We are light years ahead of Oracle when it comes to.
Chairman of the boards.
Nice. Okay.
Look, IBM Oracle. I mean, there's a lot made of this by the media. I have a lot of friends at Oracle. A lot of people at Oracle respect me. I respect them. Everything's fun and love and war when you go out to the media and all that. I respect them as a company. I respect them as a competitor. I think we've got to stop this crap in the press of, if you can stop Larry. I don't know if you can. But they're good at a couple of things that we don't do: relational databases and ERP. Okay, and so we're not going to compete with them. So, and I don't remember the last time. I'm ashamed to say, because I spent a lot of my life trying to build back the reputation of Oracle, but I just haven't heard in a long time any enterprise that says, I really love doing business with these guys. I just love it. It's just fun to do business with them. To sign enterprise-wide contracts with Oracle is just a ball. So.
Well, I'm going to just skip ahead then to a segue, because it brings to mind, and I know, again, you can't talk about lawsuits here as well, but there is a lawsuit with Oracle with regards to Itanium, and it's equally clear that Oracle has placed a big cloud over that, even though you guys have said we're in on Itanium. And that kind of casts a cloud as well on HPUX. And I'm wondering what kind of tangible effect that's having on HP's customers, and why there's no overt promotion of HPUX right now, especially when it's clear that customers would love to have an alternative to Sun in the data center.
Well, I don't think it's true that we're not promoting it, or so there's no question it has interrupted decisions. Not because customers like it. In fact, I would say customers need to be really, really irritated by this when Oracle has that much control and they make a decision that basically says, because when they didn't own Sun, they were and they were a database company. They were supporting all platforms, and HPUX was a great platform. Now that they've bought Sun, all of a sudden they're using it feels like Microsoft a little bit to me, actually, that they're using their clout with the database to control and prop up Sun because their numbers aren't good. Sun was a dying platform. It just was. It was being eliminated. And then Oracle bought it and said, we'll use the database to now basically tell customers what they should do. I thought it works the other way around. Customers should be telling Oracle what to do. And if customers want to just roll over and do what Larry wants them to do, then they won't have choices.
I have so many more questions, but we are to the point where I want to turn things over to the audience. But first, I want to throw things over to Art Whitman and the commentary desk here to just get a little bit of halftime show banter going, and while we get our mic runners ready and you guys get your questions ready. So, Art? Be really loud.
it's not working.
Oh, there we go.
So I think one of the things that we've heard through surveys and talking with people here is the thing that they want the most out of any vendor they deal with is predictability. And so I think if you took away the March announcements and just had the announcements that came in August, you would have some predictability about where HP is going. But what you see here is it seems to be just a turn in direction that people go, gosh, I'm not sure what HP is going to do, and there's other legitimate options out there. That's more interesting to me. IBM has been IBM for as long as I can remember, so they become a pretty viable alternative. Kent, I mean, how are you?
I mean, Art, I'd add a point about when you have leadership changes, it has a major impact on all the people in HP, the men and women that are out there. Ray made a point about account executives. If we have a good one, we're lucky. If you don't, they're supported by a great number of other HP people that don't appear to know what their lot in life is.
Yeah, Kent and Art, you know, I agree. I think that predictability is huge. And I think we see that at a macroeconomic level now that of course has left many of us in budget season wondering, are we going to make those big investments for 2012, or are we going to go ahead and push for another year on major investments and things that might be risky initiatives? And all of us are struggling with that now. And so when we see this kind of disruption within the vendor community, and of course not just changes in potential direction and how that affects investment, but also the reality is that these vendors are changing, like HP, where you're getting into many different areas of the business. It's no longer just servers and Oracle's the database. Now Oracle's also in the hardware business, and as you're pointing out, that has implications to what they're going to support and not support. So we're seeing a lot of complexity enter into the decision process about how we're going to invest going forward, and I think this has some potential to slow everybody down while they wait to see how things shake out.
Great.
Want
Would
me
you
to
guys like to
comment to that?
respond to that?
So the first thing I'd say is that I agree with predictability is an important factor, but technology companies that are predictable, meaning that they just keep delivering what they do, die. Okay, so you need to change. You need to adapt. You know, digital equipment, Sperry Burroughs, you know, the world is littered with corpses of people that just would not change. We're going to deliver this for the rest of time because we believe in this. So you have to continue to change in this business. It is unique about the technology business. It doesn't happen at Procter & Gamble. But in the technology business, you have to continue to do that. You also have to deliver it to the customers, the investors, the employees in an explainable manner. I think we shouldn't have packaged all these things into one announcement. That's hindsight. That's Monday morning quarterbacking. But they all make sense as a transition for HP. I think it's easier for HP to get into information, unstructured information management, along with our technology infrastructure, than it is for Oracle to be in the hardware business. Magically, are you going to start buying Sun servers when you weren't before when they were independent? What does IBM know about or what does Oracle know about the hardware business? You know, so that's a transformation quote. That's a transformation or transition that I think is much more dangerous. To take a flagging server company and try to prop it up with databases. And so, but all companies are going to change. Microsoft right now is not changing fast enough. I think it is under tremendous threat. And they need to change. They can't continue. They have relied too long on their two platinum suites, Windows and Office. And so technology companies need to change. You want them to change. You want them to offer better. It's a unique business that's able to offer more for less money every year. And they only can do it by changing. And if HP does not go through transition to offer better services, and you know, I think the PC business, personal view is the PC business would be better as a separate business. Largest, most profitable business in the world. I am lobbying, I don't have to lobby hard, to call it the HP PC business. call it HP. It'll be a sister company. Just like Agilent was a very close company to HP when we spun it off. That was very good for the customers. It was very good for shareholders. Agilent was a better business once spun off because it was a very different business than what the rest of HP was doing. This is a good, if we make that decision, good. If we don't make the decision, it's because of two things. We can't offer a better proposition to customers and investors. If we can't, it stays inside HP.
So I think there's more consistency here than you have indicated. And part of that is I don't think and Ray said it earlier, I don't think we've done a very good job of communicating to our customers, and we hear that, and we will try hard to fix that. But if you look at the vision that we've been working on for the last several years, it's an acknowledgement that you have to be leading edge in the infrastructure. We invested in lots of stuff internally, as well as some acquisitions like 3Com and 3PAR.
Both outperforming their plan by a long margin.
Right. And an acknowledgement that more and more IT is going to be delivered through a services-based business model, which is why we needed the capabilities of EDS and beyond. And then the next phase is to build on top of the T, delivered through services, and focus on the I, which is what autonomy allows us to do. So I think we've actually been fairly consistent. We just haven't done a good job of connecting the dots and laying out a roadmap.
Yeah, the most confusing thing I think of the announcements in August was WebOS and touchpads. We launched it. We really were way behind in shelf space and just getting devices out there. It was very, very tough to compete. We could have selected another direction to just take $1 billion or $2 billion write-off to price it down. When we did price it down, it flew off the shelves. We could have been a price leader. So that was it. But I don't think we've kind of made loud enough. We have not talked about WebOS and our intentions with WebOS enough.
Do we have questions out there? I see we got one in the front row here.
Fritz, we have here.
Where are we? Go ahead. Please
Hi,
stand up.
Fernando Gonzalez, company called Bayer, California, HP shop.
Could you raise your hand? We can't see where you
Back
are.
in the
Way back here.
Oh, okay.
I'm a mid-market company, and 3Com 3PAR was good for me because they're mid-market products. But now that you bought EDS, now that you bought autonomy, those are products that I can't even touch. They're way beyond me. So now the message I'm starting to get is, HP isn't a mid-market product anymore. HP is moving into the big guys. And I want to know, where do you feel? Because I'm feeling abandoned.
Why do you think autonomy is for? I don't understand the big guy mid-market thing.
Talk about cost. Autonomy is not a $100,000 product. Okay.
Okay, it's cost.
Yeah, I mean that's not something that's low end. That's good for the mid-market company.
One of the things that autonomy has, which I think is important to point out, is 30% of their business is delivered as software as a service through a cloud-based business model, which gives you the ability to have a completely different entry point than the traditional license-based business model. And we'll continue to push that into the mid-market.
Okay, you're going to have to push it lower because I have looked at it and it's still way out there.
I've never heard that. Lower prices, I've never heard that before. But,
hey, it worked for the touchpad.
But I think it is important. I think it's one of the advantages of taking autonomy and put it in a company the size of HP. What everybody's forgotten about, this is an accretive transaction in year one, but because of the synergies in HP. So as we get synergies through storage, servers, networking, our other software portfolio, Vertica, ArcSight, then hopefully we can address pricing for the mid-market as well. Maybe, so I'm not forecasting anything, but I think it's going to offer a very different scenario for autonomy.
Mike?
I'm a CIO for a mid-sized company, about $1 billion in revenue, and we have an HP shop. What you've just said, it makes it's much clearer what the plan is, so I appreciate that. But your comment around investment in storage and servers and infrastructure was almost like a footnote. And when I look at our priorities and what we have to do to deliver value in our organization, sifting through unstructured data and getting value of that is way down the list. I still have an enormous amount of structured data that we can't get our hands around and we need to. So I almost feel like you're leaving us behind, and I wondered if you could comment on that.
Yeah, just nothing could be further from the truth. It's not a footnote at all. It is our business. So it is 99% of our business in the enterprise today. All the R&D goes into that area. It is nothing. But I'm trying to address what I was asked, and that is what you announced. We announced a ton. We didn't change anything in servers, in storage, and networking. So I'm just addressing the specifics of PCs, autonomy, and WebOS. So I don't mean to, that is our business. At 99%, that's where the focus is, that's where the people are, it's what we do well.
We have one up here, Doug.
You've put a big emphasis on WebOS, its uniqueness, its differentiation from Android, et cetera, but without a place to put it, without smartphones, without tablets. How do you take advantage of that?
Yeah, great question. So we have to, and we're just not at liberty to say we're in a lot of discussions with partners that are, where their competitor is Apple or Google. There's a lot of people out there and a lot of devices that would like to have WebOS as an alternative to Android. So, so you're right. We need the places to put it, and we need to drive volume so developers have that volume. Absolutely right. So I'm talking about the capability, but without that distribution, the capability is meaningless.
And it's work in progress today, and we're not really in a position to make any announcements at this point, but it's important to understand what WebOS really is. WebOS, the OS itself, is an incredibly efficient web-oriented operating system. But sitting on top of WebOS is even more important, and that's the development environment called INEO for those of you that develop in WebOS. It is the leading web app development environment in the industry today, and we can deploy applications on WebOS. We can deploy it on top of Android, iOS, or Windows. So what this gives the development community is a common platform for which they can develop applications and deploy them on the operating system of choice. So WebOS, the strategy we're deploying is to give it a life of its own as a platform for the industry.
And before this announcement, we were deploying WebOS on Palm smartphones and on a new tablet that was half a generation or a generation behind the iPad. And so that wasn't going to drive volume. So that didn't answer your question either, to stay on that tack.
Other questions out there? So I have plenty more. I want to stay on this WebOS thing for a second, and I know you can't talk about exactly what you might do because it's all open to possibilities. There's been speculation that you'll sell it, you sell for its patents. Speculation, of course, that you might license it where that might not have been an option before. Where would you say the chances are that you're going to license this technology, and that, will you, if you do, will you be more like Google with Android and let anybody have at it, or will you be more like Microsoft and be very controlled about what hardware manufacturers can do with it?
Our goal, and we can't talk about which path we're going to go down because we really don't know yet. Our goal is to give WebOS a life of its own as a platform for the industry. And that's the key piece. So what we're focused on is the developer community. And you might ask, well, why do you care if you're going to be an enterprise company? Our view is enterprises are going to develop web applications as well, and they're going to deploy them using these new modern service-based business models. So we'll have a platform for enterprise web developers, for consumer web app developers that can span all of the existing operating system environments. What we're trying to do is come up with a business model and a sort of future for WebOS that's consistent with that.
I want to also pick up, I'm just making sure there's no other questions out there. You've got the chairman of the board of HP up here and the chief strategy officer. This is your time to ask questions. Don't let me take your time. But I will. I want to talk about the... Is there
And
one
in the
back there?
back.
Sorry, there's one in the back.
Way
Yes.
in the back.
Rather have their questions than mine. Sounds like you would too.
I'm okay with either. I think you ask good questions.
Yeah, hi, it's Cornelius Willis from VMware.
when I look at the autonomy acquisition, it appears to be in the area where the monolithic relational database model really falls down. And I'm curious if you see other opportunities where that model fails when you start looking at the information management business.
No, I think this is about the 85% of the data that's really not sitting in relational databases today. And from our view, that's a pretty big opportunity. And getting the industry's leading set of tools for addressing that 85% gives us a pretty interesting position. Now, there are some areas where the traditional models can use some turbocharging. So, for example, things like Vertica, where you've got a compressed columnar database that's good for predictive analytics work. Those are areas where I think you're going to see hole fillers, and I think we've got one of the leading opportunities there as well.
I think something we haven't talked about is that there is a big opportunity to think about the next 5 to 10 years and the applications you're going to develop that are not addressed by current packaged applications. So not by ERP applications, but by industry-specific applications that probably are not packaged yet and maybe can't be packaged, but need to be addressed with a combination of IP and services solutions. And that is, we've stated in the past, and we're still committed to doing that in the industries where we think we have good position. So healthcare, airlines, other industries that we think we have good IP to help customers in vertical applications.
Back when in March, when Mr. Apotheker addressed some of the new directions, cloud was a big part of it. And I asked him specifically about that, and he said, infrastructure as a service is interesting, but platform as a service is more interesting. But I haven't heard much. We haven't heard, I don't know, a few of us haven't heard much from HP in that regard. So are you going to be competing with Microsoft there? What can we expect in the platform as a service arena?
So let me make sure I refresh where we are with cloud. So first of all, we have a broad set of offerings from private cloud to hybrid cloud to public cloud. In addition to that, we have a whole bunch of service engagements, including service engagements where we can come to your site and do an evaluation. How ready is your IT infrastructure to actually take advantage of cloud-based business models? With cloud systems, which we announced earlier this year, we have a leading position in the work you want to do in private cloud. So in many cases, and you guys know this as well as I do, the applications that you currently use are not yet architected to be deployed in a full public cloud environment, or you have data locality issues. I think we've really taken a leadership position in the industry in our private cloud space. Earlier this week, actually it was last week, we quietly announced the private beta of our commercial cloud system.
We're afraid to announce things loudly now.
So it's a private beta, so we just rolled it out. And I use the word commercial cloud rather than public cloud because what this gives us the ability to do is allow all of you that are using our private cloud infrastructure to burst to a highly secure public cloud infrastructure. And we'll offer that as a service in a model very much like Azure or AWS or some of the other cloud players. In addition to that, it's based on an industry standard. It's based on the OpenStack environment, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. That gives us the ability to allow customers who want their own public cloud to white label that whole stack, which we will have tested and deployed, and build out their own public clouds if they choose to do so. Why would we do that? Because we want to be able to interoperate between all these public clouds. So we've got a very consistent and I think comprehensive strategy around cloud.
We have time, I think, just for one more. We had one in the back there and one over there. Somebody break the tie here.
I'll try and break it. That's fine.
All right.
Mike Restuccia, University of Pennsylvania Health System. Earlier in the discussion, it was brought up about a think tank of CIOs that get together, and the indication was that it's now the CIO's responsibility to manage the environment versus make technology decisions. Ray, could you expand upon that a little bit more and what that think tank is really going through. Thanks.
Yeah, I think we're long past the date where we even debate whether information technology is important to your company's mission. It is, okay, full stop. And so it's become more important, I think, for the CIO to determine a strategic direction for IT and deliver it fast, okay, to do it well, high quality, and do it fast. If that means I'm going to do it only with my own resources, my own capabilities, and do it by trying to pick technology, pick software, put it all together, and deliver it, you're going to be the slowest guy on the block. Just are. And I'm being blunt and provocative for a reason, is that you have to assemble best talent, best technology, get partners to help, that if your competitor does that, they will be faster than you. They will be able to leverage the talent pool, leverage the technology pool. So I remember when I was at Oracle, I'd watch enterprises spend a whole year determining whether they wanted to pick SAP or Oracle applications. And at the end, I'm not sure it really mattered. Yeah, it had to, in those days, the application had to meet the requirements, but, SAP met 90% of the requirements and Oracle met 83% of the requirements. It just wasn't the high value end of the equation, but we were in the 90s, and so it was acceptable. Today, the speed, the amount of information out there, the amount of information to be managed, the ability to compete with information is just too important, and you've got to get things in place. I'm a big fan of Salesforce.com. If you look at it as a CRM system, you say, well, hey, maybe it doesn't deliver everything. It doesn't meet my requirements perfectly, but it's fast. I can use it fast. I just funded a company started by Sandy Kurtzik. Remember that name? If any of you are old enough to remember Ask Ingres, she developed Man. Well, now in her 60s, she's done it again, but put it in the cloud. Build it on Force.com, but build it in Java so she can put it on any platform. First customer that she had, from the time she met that customer to the time she went live with 75 users, 2 weeks on a full-blown production scheduling manufacturing MRP system. 2 weeks. So that's, I think, why I say the CIO has a management job, has a leadership job to pick best-in-class solutions, but not technology, not spend time on a technology pricing decision. Pick a partner. If that partner is IBM, if that partner is HP, I think the same thing, the same analog holds that it was that I mentioned with SAP and Oracle. There may be some differences on the margin, but you want a partner that can bring the best resources to you, that can give you the advantage of dealing with your competitors.
Shane, Ray, thank you so much for coming down and facing your customers and
You're welcome.
answering all these great questions. Did a great job.
Welcome. Thanks. Thanks.